They launched the missile before anyone could stop it. 1 second, it was quiet in the South China Sea. The next alarm screamed, radar screens lit up, and the USS Ronald Reagan, a floating city of steel and firepower, had seconds to respond. No, this hasn't happened yet. But the tension between China and the United States is heating up like never before. And experts warned it could only take one bad move for all of it to explode. One false radar blip, one rogue missile, one mistake. China's been building up its navy fast, way faster than anyone ever expected. They've got warships, long-range bombers, and missiles that can travel hundreds of miles just to hit one thing, an American carrier. Why? Because that carrier isn't just a ship. It is a symbol, a moving airbase, a message that says, "We're here and we're watching you." But here is the question no one wants to answer. What actually happens when China fires first? That is what this video is all about. We'll walk you through what a real Chinese strike could look like step by step, from launch to impact, from detection to retaliation. And most importantly, what it means for the entire world if this ever turns real. Because if you think this is just saber rattling, think again. China isn't just prepping for war. They're prepping for this war. Over the last years, the Chinese Navy has exploded in size. They now have the world's largest naval fleet by ship count. But it is not just the numbers. It is what those ships and those weapons can do. Beijing is building to challenge us dominance, especially near Taiwan and in the South China Sea, and their top target, U.S. aircraft carriers. Let's talk missiles first, because if China attacks, it is going to start from far away. One of their biggest threats is the YJR-Shi, a hypersonic carrier killer missile. It is fast, like Mach shear fast, that is shear times the speed of sound. It can be launched from ships or bombers and slam into a moving target before anyone even sees it coming. It is designed to pierce right through a carrier's defenses before the crew even knows it is inbound. They also have the DF-4-RCED and DF-4-RCED, two long-range ballistic missiles known in the military world as carrier killers. These can hit targets over 10 Bayuni less away. That is farther than most fighter jets can fly without refueling. And they don't just hit the ship, they're designed to sink it. Now pair that with China's H-Liu bombers, which can carry air-launched ballistic missiles. These planes can cruise near the coast and fire missiles from hundreds of miles out. Just recently, the H-Liu was seen carrying what experts believe is the KD-RCE, an air-launched ballistic missile possibly meant for use against U.S. ships. And China is not stopping there. They've got stealthy submarines armed with torpedoes and cruise missiles capable of sneaking up under a carrier group. They've been training for swarm tactics, launching multiple attacks at once, from missiles to drones to overload us defenses. Let's not forget cyber. China's military has its own cyber division, and part of their strategy is to disrupt communications and radar systems before they even fire a shot. If they can blind the carrier group for just Senshimouse econs, that is all the time they need. So, yeah, this isn't just speculation. These weapons are real. They exist now and they're designed for one thing, making the US think twice about ever sending a carrier into Chinese waters. But here is where the real question for you watching. Do you think China would actually fire the first shot, or are they just bluffing? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're reading everyone. So now we know what China's packing. But let's be clear here. The US Navy didn't show up to this party empty-handed either. When a US carrier sails into the Pacific, it is not cruising solo. It brings back up big time. A carrier strike group usually includes a carrier, a guided missile cruiser, a few destroyers, a fast attack submarine, and a bunch of aircraft. Think of it as a floating fortress with a Sembailoshidu shield. The centerpiece, of course, is the aircraft carrier, like the USS Gerald R. Ford or the USS Ronald Reagan. These monsters launch and recover fighter jets like the Fa-Ba Super Hornet and the next GF-Fu Senshousi. These jets aren't just for show. They fly patrols, scout threats, and intercept enemy aircraft before they get too close. But the real magic, well, that happens down below decks with the tech you don't see. Let's start with the Aegis combat system. This is the Navy's eyes and brain at sea. It can track over Yeldinim targets at once and engage multiple threats in seconds. If a missile's coming in at Mach Wu, Aegis already knows, and it is calculating the best intercept point before most humans have finished blinking. Now, let's talk firepower. One of the first lines of defense is the Standard Missile R, aka SM Liaomaus. It is your basic air defense missile, but don't let the word basic fool you. It is fast, it is accurate, and it is deadly. And then there is the SM Liu, which can go after incoming cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and even aircraft. It is like the Navy's multi-Jan tool missile. Then, there is the ESM-evolved Sea Sparrow missiles for close stand-range kills. And if anything slips through that net, say hello to the Phalanx Sea Whiz. It is a nuclear-guided Gatling gun that spits Sitsen Wubai rounds a minute. That is a wall of lead designed to shred anything that is flying too close. And underwater? Well, there is usually a Virginia-class attack sub lurking nearby. These subs are stealthy, deadly, and carry torpedoes and cruise missiles. If China tried sneaking a sub close to the carrier, a Virginia-class would be the first to know and the last thing that the Chinese sub ever sees. If China really pulled the trigger, what would that look like? Moment by moment. Okay, let's play this one out. It is just past R.A.M. in the South China Sea. The skies are calm. The USS Ronald Reagan and her strike group are on routine patrol about Ibai Wuxiuni off the coast of Taiwan. Combat air patrols are in the air. The radar is quiet. The crew alert. But no one's expecting what is coming next. Somewhere on the Chinese mainland, a DF-RCED missile is rolling out onto a mobile launcher. Elsewhere, an HIL bomber lifts off from a coastal airbase, heading out over the water. No warning shots, no buildup, just sudden movement. A decision's been made behind closed doors, and the launch order is given. The attack starts from over a Liun away. The DF-RCED is fired. It arcs into space like a ballistic missile, but instead of just falling, the warhead uses a maneuverability regen entry vehicle to dive straight towards the moving target, the U.S. carrier. Meanwhile, the HIL bomber releases a KD-RCE-Uni SSIL from a standoff range, and surface ships launch swarms of YJ Shiba cruise missiles coming in low over the water, hugging the waves. On the Reagan, it takes less than seconds for radar to pick up the threat. Alarms blare. Sailors race to their stations. The Combat Information Center lights up. The ship's AI-enhanced tracking system goes into full battle mode. The Aegis system locks onto each target, prioritizing based on the threat level and the time to impact. SM-Neo-Uni SSILs are launched in pairs. The sky turns into a deadly dance of contrails, fire, and metal. One YJ Shiba breaks through the outer layer and heads straight for the Reagan's starboard side. That is when the fan-like Sea Whiz lights up, sounding like a chainsaw on steroids, spraying thousands of rounds in a blur. The missile breaks apart mid-air, debris raining into the sea. Now, imagine this. One missile gets through, it hits near the flight deck. Massive explosion. Secondary fires break out. Flight ops are shut down. Aircraft are damaged, sailors are injured, and the ship isn't sinking, but it is hurting. Here is the kicker. This is just the first Schiffenjon Utes. A carrier strike group is designed to keep fighting even while wounded. Damage control teams jump into action. Fire suppression systems activate. Drones are launched to locate the launch source. Within minutes, an EA Shiba G-Growler is airborne, jamming enemy radar and blinding Chinese targeting systems. US subs in the area move into offensive posture, and now it is America's turn to answer. This kind of attack wouldn't just hit one ship. It would wake up the entire Pacific Fleet. Bases in Japan, Guam, and even Hawaii would go on high alert. Allies like Australia and South Korea would be briefed instantly. Warships would start repositioning. BE bombers would be airborne within hours. Satellites would focus on Chinese launch sites for a potential counterstrike. What makes this even more intense? There is no way to know if that first missile was it or if there are more coming. Was it a warning shot? A miscalculation? Or the opening salvo of something even bigger? Let's not sugarcoat it here. If China actually hits a US carrier, that is crossing a line no one's ever touched in modern history. And if that line gets crossed, the US Navy isn't going to wait around for round two. The moment the strike hits, whether it lands or not, the carrier strike group kicks into full wartime posture. The Reagan might be wounded, but the other ships in the group very much alive and very fully armed. The first step, lock it down. Radio silence drops. Communications go encrypted only. Air defense nets go fully active. Every nearby destroyer and cruiser begins tracking any other potential threats. Missiles, drones, aircraft, even submarines. This isn't just damage control anymore. It is real-time combat ops. The Reagan launches drones and UJ-D Hawkeyes. It is airborne early warning aircraft. The birds fly high, watching for any new launches. If China plans to follow up with a second wave, they're not getting the element of surprise again. Meanwhile, the air wing is already in the air. Fa Bas and Fu Sensuus from the Reagan's deck scramble into the sky. Their orders, immediate recon and interdiction. That means identifying launch sites, spotting enemy ships or subs, and if needed, striking back hard. And trust me, the US doesn't just throw punches blindly. Retaliation comes fast, but it is strategic. Chinese radar installations on disputed islands like the Spratlys or Paracels, they're high on the hit list. A Tomahawk cruise missile doesn't care how many miles away you are. Fired from a destroyer like the USS Houthis, it can hit a target with GPS precision from hundreds of miles out. One target, Chinese missile radar trucks and coastal launchers. Another satellite umplaques and command post guiding the DFR-SHD missiles. Cut the eyes, cut the hands. In the meantime, US cyber units go to work. If China's using digital warfare to jam US radars or mislead missile systems, America's own cyber teams, like those in US Cyber Command, go full offense. Think systems overload, GPS spoofing, and digital ghost signals aimed at Chinese targeting networks. Silent, invisible, brutal. And we haven't even talked about the subs yet. You can bet there is at least one Virginia-class fast attack submarine shadowing the carrier group. The moment that attack begins, that sub disappears, dives deep, goes quiet. Its mission, track the enemy ships, especially Chinese submarines or destroyers within range. If any hostile vessel gets close enough to launch another missile, a torpedo might be their last surprise. And here is a brutal detail. US subs often already know where some of these enemy vessels are. They've been tracking them long before things got hot. If given the go, it is one click and a torpedo's in the water. On land, PACOM, the US Indo-Pacific Command goes into full alert. Guam's Anderson Air Force Base spins up BEB bombers. Japan activates its ballistic missile defense systems. Bases in Okinawa are cleared for launch ops. Australia starts loading fuel and supplies. Everybody knows what is happening, and nobody wants to be caught off guard. Back at sea, the Reagan's crew is fighting fires, patching systems, moving injured to medical bays. But the carrier isn't dead. Far from it. Carriers are built to take a punch and keep going. The deck might be damaged. Some systems might be down, but the ship floats. The crew rallies, and in minutes, flight operations resume. Maybe reduced, but still active. Why? Because the US Navy plans for this exact situation. Wounded or not, the carrier remains a command platform. Other ships in the group step up. Command can even shift temporarily to a nearby destroyer or cruiser if needed. The group doesn't stop, it adapts. And that is the difference between drills and real-world readiness. And let's be honest, China knows this too. That is why a strike like this wouldn't be taken lightly. One hit on a carrier is not just a tactical move. It is a declaration, and that declaration comes with consequences, global ones. Because now the big question isn't what is next for the Reagan. It is what is next for the world. A Chinese missile slams into a US carrier. Within minutes, every major military radar across the Pacific lights up. This isn't just a US-China issue anymore. Now, the whole region is on edge. First up, Japan. With US bases all over Okinawa and the Japanese Self-Jan Defense Force already watching the East China Sea, Tokyo would likely go on immediate high alert. Patriot missile batteries roll out, Aegis destroyers reposition, and combat aircraft scramble. Japan isn't a bystander. They're a close US ally with a front row seat. South Korea follows next. Seoul knows that if the US is attacked, their own security might be next. Their air defense systems already pointed at North Korea would now have to factor in any potential ripple from the South China Sea. Then there is Australia, a quiet powerhouse with strong US ties. You can bet Canberra would lock down all naval assets, ready RAF jets, and start sending surveillance aircraft over key hotspots. They've already joined us patrols in the region. This would only accelerate cooperation. And don't forget Taiwan. That tiny little island just deep by Uniles from China's coast becomes ground zero for global attention. And if Taiwan fears it is next, you could see them fully activate their military and even call for international help. The Philippines too play a key role. The US recently reopened bases there. One's close to Chinese Jan-held islands. A strike on a carrier could trigger a direct coordination, joint patrols, and even combat air cover from a Filipino territory. And then here is where it gets complicated. NATO, under Article Wu. NATO isn't obligated to respond unless a member is attacked directly. But guess what? If that carrier was attacked while hosting NATO officers, or if the strike involved US forces coordinating with allies, things get murky fast. At the very least, expect massive intelligence sharing, mobilization of naval assets, and political pressure on Beijing. Meanwhile, at the United Nations chaos, emergency meetings, accusations, vetoes flying like confetti, China denies aggression. The US shows satellite footage, Russia might side with China, Europe pushes for restraint, and all the while, tensions grow. And let's not forget the markets. Global shipping through the South China Sea carries trillions of dollars in trade. One missile could spike oil prices, crash stock markets, and trigger panic buying from Beijing to New York. And now comes the scariest part of all. What happens next? Does this spark a full Jan-blown war? Let's be clear. This isn't just about missiles and warships anymore. It is about escalation, and that escalates fast. The moment shots are fired, both sides enter a game of who blinks first. But the US and China, neither of them blink easily. Beijing might claim that the carrier was in their waters or say it was self-Jan defense. They could try to stop it there, hoping the US won't risk going bigger. But the problem is the US can't afford to look weak. If they don't respond hard, they risk sending a message that American ships and allies are fair game. So now we're on the edge. US retaliation ramps up. Chinese air defenses fire back. A destroyer goes down. Suddenly there are casualties on both sides. Politicians start making threats on live TV. The internet explodes, and in the background, the military's prepping for more. Warships reposition, submarines stalk the depths, Air Force bombers fly long-range sorties, commanders start drawing up strike packages against mainland missile silos. China mobilizes its reserves. The US issues warnings to commercial aircraft. This isn't posturing anymore. This is war prep. But here is a terrifying twist. The entire conflict could leap off the map fast because the South China Sea is surrounded by flashpoints. Taiwan, the Philippines, the Skaku Islands. If fighting spills over into these areas, now you've got a regional war dragging in Japan, South Korea, Australia, and even possibly India, depending on how the borders shift. And if China feels cornered, they could push further, launch cyber attacks on US infrastructure, jam satellites, or flex their nuclear arsenal, just enough to rattle nerves in Washington. Both the US and China are nuclear superpowers here. They have second strike capability. That means if one side gets hit first, they can still hit back and hit hard. Both nations know the stakes. They've got hotlines, back-channel talks, and military-toiletary communication meant to stop the bleeding before it becomes a flood. Still, one missile, one sunken ship, one dead pilot. That is all it takes to roll the dice on a new kind of war. This isn't just military fiction here. This is a future that is actually possible and way too close for comfort. A single missile strike could shatter peace in the Pacific, crash global markets, and drag the two world's largest militaries into a war nobody wins. Right now, US and Chinese warships pass each other in the South China Sea every week, sometimes within a few hundred feet. Fighter jets intercept each other in the air, and tensions are rising, not fading. That is why diplomacy matters now more than ever. Because once the first shot is fired, there is no clean way back. So, we're left with a chilling question. Are both sides prepared to stop this before it starts? Or are we sleepwalking into something we'll all regret? What do you think? If China ever attacked a US aircraft carrier, what should America do? Respond with force or try to de-escalate? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video eye-opening, give it a like, hit subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.